Hey, Larry here. Acts 29 today, coming to you from Sunny World headquarters in Chiang Mai, Thailand. There's a lot of new content now on the Acts 29 Today YouTube channel. And we're going to take a deep dive into the truth and the lies that are affecting the world and especially the church in these days. So if you'd like to come along, welcome to the journey. Oh, and by the way, just because others won't does not mean that you can't. I'll see you soon. Hey, Larry here. Welcome to the journey. Glad to have you here. I'm very humbled that you would come and take the time to hang out with me for a few minutes on this journey, because it means a lot to me that I can share and just help build some people up and bring some things for encouragement in these days. So as promised, I'm going to go into this guy's story that I told you about that I was going to go into. And so I'm just going to read a few pages from the book that's called Tortured for Christ. The history of the underground church that you will read reflects the continuing struggle in many parts of the world today, where Christians meet in caves, basements, and prisons. Pastor Wormbrand is the author of several books translated into 68 languages throughout the world, and also the founder of the Christian mission, The Voice of the Martyrs. He tries to smuggle relief to families of imprisoned Christians in Arab nations, communist nations, Vietnam, China, and other countries where Christians are persecuted for their faith. His message is: hate the evil systems, but love your persecutors, love their souls, and try to win them for Christ. Love your persecutors. Sounds like something I read in the Bible one time that Jesus said. And, you know, this guy, he learned to walk in that kind of love too. So Richard Wormbrand is an evangelical minister who spent 14 years in communist imprisonment and torture in his homeland of Romania. He is one of Romania's most widely known Christian leaders, authors, and educators. Few names are better known in his homeland. In 1945, when the communists seized Romania and attempted to control the churches for their purposes, Richard Wormbrand immediately began an effective, vigorous underground ministry to his enslaved people and the invading Russian soldiers. He was eventually arrested in 1948 along with his wife, Sabine. His wife was a slave laborer for 3 years. Richard Wormbrand spent 3 years in solitary confinement, seeing no one but his communist torturers. After 3 years, he was transferred to a mass cell for 5 years, where the torture continued. Due to his international stature as a Christian leader, diplomats of foreign embassies asked the communist government about his safety. They were told he had fled to Romania, and the secret police, posing as released fellow prisoners, told his wife of attending his burial in the prison cemetery. So his family in Romania and his friends abroad were told, forget him, because now he's dead. Well, after 8 years, he was released and promptly resumed his work with the underground church. 2 years later, in 1959, he was rearrested and sentenced to 25 years in prison. Now, this next part, he starts out by talking about Jesus has told us to distinguish the language of seduction from the language of love, and to know the wolves clad in sheep's clothing from the real sheep. When the communists came to power, thousands of priests, pastors, and ministers did not know how to distinguish these two voices between God's voice and the sheep dressed up, wolves dressed up in sheep's clothing. They didn't know how to distinguish the two voices. So the communists convened a congress of all Christian bodies or churches in our parliament building. There were 4,000 priests, pastors, and ministers of all denominations. These 4,000 priests and pastors chose Joseph Stalin as honorary president of this Congress. At the same exact time, he was also president of the World Movement of the Godless and a mass murder of Christians. One after another, bishops and pastors arose in our parliamentary building and declared that communism and Christianity are fundamentally the same and could coexist. One minister after another said words of praise towards communism and assured the new government of the loyalty of the church. My wife and I were present at this Congress. My wife was sitting near me and told me, Richard, stand up and wash away this shame from the face of Christ. They are spitting in his face. I said to my wife, if I do so, you lose your husband. She said, I do not wish to have a coward as a husband. Then I arose and I spoke to this Congress. That means he stood up and walked up to the front of the Congress at the podium, praising not the murder of Christians, but praising Christ and God, and said that our loyalty is due first to him. The speeches at this Congress were being broadcast to the whole country, and the whole country could hear proclaimed from the podium of the Communist Parliament the message of Christ. Afterward, I had to pay for this, but it had been worthwhile. Orthodox and Protestant church leaders competed with each other in yielding to communism. As Orthodox bishop put the hammer and sickle on his robes and asked his priest not to call him anymore Your Grace, but now Comrade Bishop. I attended the Congress of the Baptists in the town of Rosetta, a congress under the communist red flag where the anthem of the Soviet Union had been sung with everyone standing. The president of the Baptists proclaimed that Stalin did nothing but fulfill the commandments of God. They praised Stalin as a great leader of the Bible, and priests like Petrosconi and Rozanu were more direct. They became officers of the secret police. Rapp, the deputy bishop of the Lutheran Church in Romania, began to teach in a theological seminary that God had given 3 revelations, one through Moses, one through Jesus, and the third one through Stalin, the last superseding the one before. It also must be understood that there were real believers whom I love very much that did not agree with the communists and were very faithful to Christ and suffered much. However, the communists elected their leaders, and the Baptists had no choice but to accept them. The same condition is true today of the very top religious leadership. Those who became servants of communism instead of standing for Christ. Wow. Well, I've read this book, and it is amazing. It is an amazing, amazing book. And it really helped me in my faith, and you know, to know that that strength has to be there before the storm comes. And we have to be ready to stand. Having done all to stand therefore. And there's a couple other books. One's called The Heavenly Man. It's about a Chinese guy. That's just an incredible story. Another one is For This Cross I Will Kill You. The guy went into the Amazon jungle to some of the lost tribes that nobody had ever been to. The other one is called Vanya, a young soldier back in the Soviet Union days, and his life in the army and how they ended up killing him in the end. Just tremendous story. So these are some of the ways we can build our faith as the persecution continues, and we'll get stronger. So remember, just because others won't does not mean that you can't, because you can. So thank you for tuning in today, and I know this is kind of heavy stuff, but it's reality, it's truth, and that's what we're facing in Truth and Lies. We must stand on the truth. There's no other way to go. And so I'm just exhorting us all to keep building the ark, and let's be prepared for when it starts raining, that we will be found faithful to stand in the midst of whatever happens on this level. So I love you, God loves you, and we will get into some more stuff on the next video. So God bless, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.